What's going on, guys? I've been kind of MIA with the E12 for the past couple weeks, maybe even months, I don't know. But obviously, you know, I had the series on all the restoration stuff to the engine bay, and I finally finished all that, and I made the video. I made a video talking about going to get the exhaust, but I don't think I ever updated on that. The first place denied me. They turned it down once they saw it in person. They said they really didn't want to do it, and if they did it, they wanted $1,000, which is ridiculous. Found a place local. This dude, Tony, took it in, did it that day, did a really nice job. So you can see under here, if it's light enough, the shinier pipe right there. So you can see what he did was took a 1-into-2 collector that adapted from the downpipes to the existing exhaust. And I have the full stock exhaust still on this thing. So it sounds pretty good. It sounds nice and mean, like an M30 should. It's not the best condition. You know, the mufflers are kind of falling apart, and I think you can kind of hear that in them. But whatever, it'll do for now. I didn't want to pay $3 grand for an exhaust, and I wanted to keep it factory, nice and quiet. But I didn't film, but I took this car in its first couple finished exhaust test drives. And now basically I'm reporting back to you guys. Everything went well. There was no major hiccups during the drives. Except the first drive, what happened was I would go to accelerate and anything above 2,500 and the car would fall on its face, stop, like nothing beyond that. It was happening consistently. It was low on gas. I filled it up. I got about 2 pulls in I got all the way to red line, and then it came back. I let the car sit overnight, and after sitting overnight, I went out and drove it the next day, and the problem never came back. Even to this day, I've driven it a few times, and it has not returned. My guess is the only thing fuel-related that I have not touched is the in-tank pump. I'm sure that tank is a little rusty inside from sitting, and I'm sure that pump had some gunk on the sock filter. So I'm guessing that was the problem. Something was floating around in there, and it got sucked in. But after a full tank of gas and overnight, it floated away. So it might return, it might not. If it does return, I'm gonna pull out the in-tank pump and check it out and replace it. If not, I'm gonna let it be. But other than that, noticeable issues were spark related. So the car ran really good. It would go all the way up to, you know, I kind of was afraid to do red line, but, you know, damn close to it. And it would hit it with ease. But I noticed that after sitting in traffic, meaning like, you know, I was stopped at a light for, 30 seconds, meaning, the car can heat soak. I think this clutch fan's no good. I need to get a new one. That's a really old one. But heat soaking the car basically led to, it would break up. High RPMs would break up, like above 4K, it would kind of stutter a little bit. And that's telltale spark problems. If they change with heat, that's always spark related. And I noticed basically the things I have not replaced in this engine bay, the only things are probably the most important to how it runs. And those are the cap, the spark plug wires, and the ignition coil. These are all original, 40 years old. They're not in bad condition, but just that old of anything spark related is kind of iffy. So I went ahead and I ordered all those things. So you can see here, I got a new cap, I got the new spark plug wires, and I got a new ignition coil. So I'm gonna go ahead and do those today and take her for a test drive, take you guys with, maybe put the head mount on, get some good POV clips of driving this old thing, and hopefully it runs a lot smoother. It doesn't run bad, but it is a little hiccupy sometimes. I think these will really help. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into that. Also, one other thing I complained about when driving was if you shift it a certain way, meaning too fast or whatever, you get a pretty nice clunk from the rear end. So I bought myself a diff mount. Diff mounts on these cars and all like the old E24, E28, they all blow up really easily. They're just kind of a goofy design. So it's basically one bolt that goes through like the back of the diff and then mounts it to the frame. These cars have a big issue with basically, since it's just bolted in the sheet metal, the diff ripping out the sheet metal. I'm hoping that's not the case. I doubt it's the case, but either way, I'm gonna do the diff mount. Probably not today. I'm kind of feeling lazy. I don't really want to get underneath, but I'm gonna do all the spark stuff. Before starting anything, what I really hate about a lot of this, like when you replace these components, they don't come with any markings. E12s in particular are extremely confusing because this is a full circle. It can go in a lot of orientations, and you need to have your spark plug wires in a certain order for the ignition timing. I remember that's what actually wasn't allowing this car to start when I first got it. The ignition timing was wrong. So I brought the cap, and first things first, I labeled everything. So I labeled the top, so I know how it goes on, and then I numbered it. So you got 6, 3, 5, 1, 4, 2. So that's all labeled, ready to go. And then the new plug wires also didn't have any labeling. So I pulled them, you know, through this to test which was which, and then I labeled these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those are labeled, the cap is labeled, the coil you don't really have to label. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw those in and start her up and see how she runs. First things first, you gotta remove your whole air box and AFM assembly. There's my freshly painted valve cover that the air box has rubbed into. Thank you very much, air box. But got the old crusty wires out. They're not bad. I mean, I don't really know what tells apart from bad versus good, but I mean they're crusty. They've been in there for 40 years, so I'm sure they're broken down inside. Here's the new ones. Different style box, but it appears that the mounts are in the same spot. This one's just gonna sit a little bit further forward. No biggie there. And then I got the cap ready to come off. So we got one there and one there, a little more difficult. And then there you go. Foolish me, forgot to buy the rotor. I actually forgot that these cars have a rotor on them, as stupid as that might sound. Because all this point and ignition stuff is a little bit different on the older cars than the newer. So I forgot that it had a rotor. Stupid. So I'm gonna have to order one of these because this makes a pretty big difference in how the car runs. So I'll have to go back and do that. But otherwise, old cap is off. It doesn't even look bad inside. Again, don't know what dictates bad versus good, but it's got some wear on the points. That's about all I can make of it. All right, I got the new wires in, the new cap, and the new coil. Everything mounts as it should. It's really kind of awkward getting these different style plugs into the cap. They're kind of a pain to go in. But they go in, so I'm gonna put the air box back on and give her a crank and see how she runs, take it for a drive. Make sure you note that there's 3, it's weird, I don't know why, there's 3 of these prongs on this coil. You hook them up to the front 2 there. So just look at yours before you take it off if you're using this as a DIY. So right off the bat, I'm gonna tell you guys, that startup was very strong. Like that was a very nice sounding startup. Like it's idling very strong right now. I wish I filmed like the before, but it would start, but it was always a very weak startup. Like it would, you know, like if you just watch this, right, and you just heard how it started, it, you know, it took a while, crank, and then, you know, it ramped up. That's what it just did. Before, it would always just kind of fall into running, if you know what I mean. Like it would kind of just get there. But that was a very strong startup right off the bat. It's got a really strong idle. Like it's idling nice. The motor seems to be nice and smooth. I'll be honest, it's a lot smoother than it was. You used to be able to feel the car kind of shake. So very responsive revs. So I'm actually excited because before, pulling up to like a stoplight or whatever, the car would always dip. So you'd go from gear to neutral and it would kind of dip. I'm excited to see if this stopped that. I kind of always thought that was a vacuum issue, and it might be, but it also could have been a weak spark issue. I haven't given you guys a POV driving this thing yet. Hopefully the GoPro's not in the frickin' headliner like it was with the E46. I'm a little too tall for this car. This is a very tiny car. It's hilarious, really. But all right, let's go. So right off the bat, the initial accelerations feel really nice. Up to, what was that, like 3,500? No stumbling or anything. Third gear, gets right into it. So that feels good. I don't know why I just rev matched an upshift. Yeah, it feels good. So from gear, putting it into neutral, it actually returns to neutral really nice. I'm gonna give her a second gear all the way. Maybe not all the way. Oh yeah, so it pulls 4,500 easy, no issues, smooth too. I really don't have a ton of driving experience with this car. I wish I did. I can't, really remember how it felt, but that felt good. I do remember, it's just, if you've driven an M30 or an M20 car, you know what I'm talking about. Really up high, they never really feel like they're too happy. I've never gone through an M30 or an M20 like I have with this, so it might be a different story. But unless everything is fresh and replaced, they always kind of way up top get a little, they get a little unhappy. They start to break up easily. So maybe this will be different. This is a fully gone through, my first time ever going through a car like this. Let's see how it returns to idle. Yeah, nice. It dips a little bit. Could be that ICV related. The old ICV could be sticky, but otherwise that felt really good. Oh yeah, that was almost 6. I don't think I've ever revved the car out that high, but it did. That was phenomenal. That was a strong, that was very strong rev right there. That was like no breaking up, no sputtering, no nothing. That felt solid. I don't think I've revved this car that high yet. That was nerve-wracking as hell. Wow, that like it's not fast. It doesn't go through the revs really quick. So you're literally watching it, like 40,000, 5,000, like, oh my God, like, it doesn't even sound, like, not that it doesn't sound happy, but it just, you feel bad for the motor, like, taking it that high. It's really nerve-wracking revving out this old of a car. Like, this car, it's literally like driving a museum artifact. It truly is. This car is something special to drive. It's a car that you don't want to drive hard. I have no desire to drive it hard. It's a cruiser, windows down, nice summer night type of car. Not that these M30s aren't durable as all hell, but it's just, it feels wrong to rev it out like that. But let me tell you, it revved out really nicely. I can tell just from previous drives, even going to 45 and maybe 5 grand, up top it got a little like iffy. But that went all the way to 6, not a problem. What I'm gonna do is pull through the force reserve here, do a couple pulls, even though it feels weird to even call them pulls. I'm gonna go into a parking lot, idle it for a little bit to simulate sitting in traffic and kind of heat soak, and then I'm gonna get back on the road, give it some revs and see how it holds up. This feels so weird driving this thing with a head mount back here, because normally this is where I'd go to, rip the E34 or the E46, which I will be doing with the E34. I will be doing a POV driving of that. Hopefully a day with no traffic, I can get out here and actually do some nice pulls. But in this thing, it just feels weird. 60 is like, you really don't feel the need to go more than 60 miles an hour in this car. The tires are old. They're super old. Almost so old that it's irresponsible of me to even be driving on them. Like, they might blow any second. So you get a little bit of shake, a little bit of instability with that. Aside from that, the car handles really well. Like, a lot of E34s, E28s, all those old BMWs, you'll hop in them and they'll have just insane 55 mile an hour shake, this and that. Usually the upper control arms in the front. This thing has nothing even close to that. It handles really well. The front right tire leaks a little bit, so it's a little low right now, so I think that's why the steering wheel is a little offset. But aside from that, it's a really solid. You can really tell like the low mileage of this car. I've put about 106 miles on it since I bought it. I bought it with 8696, 8698. So I put 104 miles, 106 miles, which is really cool. I love having a working odometer. I wanted to drive this car so much more than I have, but it really just turned into, I ran out of time, got so caught up rebuilding it and this and that, and then, with the other cars, I just really ran out of time, which sucks. But I'm definitely gonna drive it and enjoy it while I still have some summer left. And yeah. So I let it idle, chill for a little bit, heat soak. So I'm gonna get back on, and right off the bat, I'm gonna give it a nice first second. Oh yeah. No hesitation whatsoever. All the way up to whatever 4 I just got it. Yeah, that felt good. So definitely eliminated the heat sink or the heat soaking issue or whatever that it was, because that felt good. Those were strong pulls even after letting it sit and getting a little warm. So I'm happy to report that car's driving good. It's still, I noticed a few times, it still has this little idle dip issue. I don't know what there is really left to do about that. We'll see. It, you know, cold, it is noticeably like returns to idle nicer than when warm. So I want to say it is for sure the IACV, because on the 78s the ICV is actually coolant operated on these cars. Very weird, I know. Ancient BMW junk. Basically there's coolant hoses that run like behind it, and that thing works based off the coolant temp. So as the temp warms up, it adjusts idle that way. So I'm guessing that thing's a little funky, a little finicky. Could probably mess with it. I probably won't as of now. Again, it's not a huge issue. But other than that, the heat soak idle stumbling issue is gone. The spark plugs and wires definitely did a number, made this car really nice. I mean, it cruises. This thing, I honestly would not hesitate to hop in this thing and drive it any day, all day, whatever. It feels really well put together and running. I say well put together, like I didn't put it together. I did put it together. And it really is a satisfying feeling to have a 42-year-old car that has 0 leaks anywhere. I mean, you go underneath, the oil pan on this car completely dry. I think I touched on that back in the day when I was doing all the restoration stuff. But there is no seepage from the oil pan gasket. There is no seepage anywhere. It is truly amazing. I'm sure after I start driving it more, those old seals that have held all these years will probably start to go. So I'm sure some leaks will spring here and there, but otherwise very well put together. It's getting dark, I'm hungry. I'm gonna send it back to the crib and yeah, park it up, and I'll talk to you guys when I get there. So I stopped to get food on the way home, and after all the praise I was giving the car running so good, surely enough, what happens? The issue that I told you guys prior that happened, where it would hit about 3K and fall on its face, that issue literally just came back. I was driving it probably a good 30-40 minutes, sat in a drive-through for a little bit, let it idle. After the drive-through, I went out. It's a little bit above half a tank, and the issue came back. So I went, and it would just fall on its face. So it happens in all the gears. It happens at idle. It happens at idle at a higher RPM. So, for example, second gear hitting a pull, right? 2,500 to 3,000, it'll fall off. Idle, it'll go to about almost 4 and fall off. But if you consistently rev it, it'll come sooner. So I'm not tripping. I'm almost positive it's the inline tank. Like, I'm almost sure of it. The pump, I mean, the in-tank pump. So when I get to it, I'm gonna open that up, check it out, see how things look. But I'm almost positive that's my issue. But aside from that, the plugs, the wires, and everything did wonders. I'm very happy with the car. So gotta do a few more things to her. You know, it never ends. But there's your update for you guys. I didn't want to leave you guys in the dark about the E12. It's running, driving. I've been enjoying it. So thank you guys for watching. See you next video.